Shalom and welcome to another episode in our series called Faith Journeys with God in the Land. Today we're at Sepphoris, the Hebrew pronunciation for Sepphoris, here in the Lower Galilee. Jesus traveled throughout the Galilee, teaching in their synagogues. This is what we read in Matthew. And to think that we are right in the heart of the Lower Galilee here at this place called Sepphoris or Sepphoris. We're literally walking where Jesus did. Now Sepphoris is a very Hellenized Jewish city. It was, I should say, back in the days of Jesus. And I had to think that Jesus was here. I have another episode where we highlight the mosaics of this place. This is a city that was revolting against Romans when Jesus is about 10 years old. But what I want to do in this episode is just to take you to the top of this high building and show you the area. Because when we talk about walking in the footsteps of Jesus, we're talking about where he grew up first. Right behind me is the Ridge of Nazareth. Now Nazareth, as we know from Luke 4, is where there was a synagogue, and Jesus taught in his hometown about his redemptive purpose. But look how close Nazareth is. Nazareth technically begins the Lower Galilee, and as we take a look from this rooftop, you can see how close it is. There it is. It's 4 or 5 miles as a crow flies. But as we take a look around in the other directions, we can see how beautiful the Lower Galilee still is today. Now, across this valley that we'll see in a moment. And before we do that, let me just angle the camera down to the theater area of Sepphoris. But there across the Beit Netofa Valley is a city called Cana. Now we hope to provide an episode right from Cana as well, coming up. But when we talk about what happened in Cana, right across the way is what we read in John 2. Jesus changed the water to wine. And then later on, Jesus is there in chapter 4. And someone from Capernaum, which is located down off the northwest corner of the Sea of Galilee, some official comes and his son is dying, and Jesus, on the spot, says, "Your son will live." And what you know it, the man then goes home, and on the way, one of his servants comes and says, "Hey, your son is living." And the man realized that precisely when Jesus said, "Your son will live," this is when the son was indeed healed. The perfect timing of Christ's healing. Can we call it a distant healing? Because he spoke healing for this son even while at Cana that you see in the distance. You really can't see the archaeological site. But look how beautiful this area is. So Jesus healed, he taught about the kingdom in many of these towns and villages. Now, Josephus, the Jewish historian, tells us that there were over 200 towns and villages in the Galilee area. Probably here in the Lower Galilee as well as in the Sea of Galilee basin. There's Nazareth once again. But it's a great view here. A little hazy this morning, but a great view that helps us remember that Jesus traveled up and down these valleys, up and down the hills, and certainly served those who came to hear him, I should say, They were interested about what he was teaching concerning the kingdom. Every rabbi had his own way of interpreting the law, and I'm sure they were intrigued with this Messiah-like figure who came not to deal with the political oppression, if you will, caused by the Romans. In fact, this site, this city, I should say, in 6 AD, revolted against the Romans, led by a guy named Judas the Galilean, who was also a messianic figure when Jesus is about 10. But the beauty of the Lower Galilee, and just to think that Jesus spent a lot of time here, going back and forth from Nazareth to Capernaum. It's about 42, 43 miles, a little over 60 kilometers, and all these towns and villages on the way that Jesus indeed served. He showed compassion. He displayed his smekah, his authority. And what Jesus still does today for our faith walk is that as we walk with him, he displays himself in many ways. When we read about his life and ministry in the Gospels, we're always finding new things about him. We're discovering how he served people humbly, even though as God's Son, the Son of Man, this phrase, messianic title, if you will, borrowed from the book of Daniel. We still walk with him, not literally in the Lower Galilee as he did, but we still follow in his footsteps, and we read what he said in places like Cana and the Lower Galilee and all these towns and villages where he must have spent a lot of time. And of course, right here too, and even though Sepphoris was a little Hellenized, there's a group there in the theater right below me. This was indeed a place just 4 miles away from Nazareth, which is, once again, as we conclude, right behind me. So our faith walk really is all about following in the footsteps of Jesus, hearing his teaching again, learning from him, allowing his Spirit to inspire our walk of faith with him. And as he grew up humbly in Nazareth, it was a town of maybe a couple hundred, if that. Today it's about 80,000 people. But think that Jesus came from Nazareth. He was born in Bethlehem, but he grew up in Nazareth, here on the very southern end of the Lower Galilee. And he indeed was familiar with this site. And yet we still follow him and retrace his footsteps as we understand that he wants us to follow him as one of his Talmudim, a term that means disciple, but it goes deeper than that. It means to walk in the dust of our rabbi. It means to cling and thirst for every word that he spoke, and that's what is to characterize our walk of faith with him as Talmudim. And of course, as we bring this to a close in John 1, Nathaniel asked, "What good can come out of Nazareth?" And Philip said, "Come and see." Come and see. Great words, 3 words. And indeed, that's what we have come to do. Come and see Jesus walk here and there and all the people that he encountered along the way. And that, of course, includes us being touched by the love and grace of Christ and inspired now to live out the kingdom principles as we follow him. So from Sepphoris, overlooking Nazareth, here in the Lower Galilee, be encouraged and walk with Christ today. Until next time, shalom.